She said she wasn't in the mood tonight the same way she'd been saying it for weeks. Flat, efficient, already reaching for her phone. I had just come back from a 12-hour shift, grease still under my nails. The kind of day where you trust cables and counterweights more than people. She didn't look up. The glow on her face wasn't from the lamp. It was from WhatsApp lighting her eyes like a second screen inside our marriage. I nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't ask. I showered. Lay there, listened to her fingers tap the mattress in that quiet rhythm she used when she was typing. The house was silent except for that. Silence used to mean rest. That night it meant replacement. 3 days earlier, I would have stayed in bed anyway. By the third refusal, something recalibrated. Not anger. Math. I moved my work bag to the hall. Put a pillow in the guest room. No announcement. Just subtraction. On the fourth night, after a late call out, I parked the Ford Ranger and didn't go inside. I drove until the numbers on the clock stopped feeling like a countdown and pulled into a Waffle House where nobody asked questions and the lights stayed on no matter the hour. I ate, paid, and kept driving. I didn't come home. I didn't explain. I let the house keep its quiet. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. She asked where I was sleeping. By then, the question wasn't about the bed. It was about control, and it was already gone. The message sat there unopened longer than it should have. Not because I was afraid of it, but because I already knew what it would say. When you work around elevators long enough, you learn the sound of a failing cable before it snaps. This felt the same. It wasn't from her. It was from a number I didn't have saved. A name I recognized anyway. Jason. Someone from her office. Not close enough to matter. Close enough to see patterns. He didn't accuse. He didn't warn. He just asked if everything was okay at home. People only ask that when they already know the answer. That night, I stayed parked outside a Motel 6, engine ticking as it cooled, watching the light in my phone pulse again. Another notification from WhatsApp. Not to me. I could tell by the timing. Same hours. Same gaps. She used to fall asleep by 10. Now she was too wired until after midnight. I didn't confront her. I didn't even open her messages. I started noticing instead how she angled her screen away, how she smiled at nothing, how she said work was exhausting, but somehow had energy left for someone else's words. Back home, she placed an Instacart order for us. Groceries stacked neatly in the fridge I wasn't opening anymore. 2 yogurts. 2 salads. She was still shopping for the version of me that stayed. That's when I understood the shift. She hadn't left yet, but she was already gone. And I wasn't angry. I was adjusting weight limits. I didn't go looking for proof. Proof has a way of finding you when patterns stop hiding. It started with the calendar. Our shared one went quiet on my end. No reminders. No color blocks. She thought it was a sync issue. I knew better. Then an email from AT&T landed in my inbox about a change to our family plan. Extra data usage. Night hours. Streaming spikes. It wasn't a bill problem. It was a behavior problem. I still didn't ask her anything. At home, she moved lighter. Like someone trying not to make noise in a space they didn't fully occupy anymore. She slept with her phone face down, charging on her side. Every vibration made her tense before she relaxed again. Relief came fast. Too fast. One night, while grabbing a jacket from the guest room, I saw her laptop open on the bed. A work window minimized too slowly. I caught a name. Jason again. No words. Just timestamps. Long ones. The kind that stretched past midnight. That was enough. I logged out of the family chat. Removed myself from the shared photo stream. Disconnected the calendar entirely. Quiet changes. Surgical. The kind you don't notice until something important doesn't open anymore. She noticed the silence before she noticed me. Her messages on WhatsApp shifted tone. First casual, then curious, then clipped. Read receipts stayed on. I let them. I wasn't collecting evidence to confront her. I was mapping exits. When you work with elevators, you learn something early. Most failures don't happen all at once. They happen because someone ignored the warnings and kept riding anyway. I stepped off. The fourth night was the easiest decision I'd made in weeks. No debate. No weight in my chest. I finished a late service call, wiped my hands, and sat in the truck longer than usual, listening to the engine settle. Home was 10 minutes away. I drove past the exit without slowing. I checked into a Motel 6 just off the highway. The kind of place that doesn't ask why you're alone or how long you're staying. The room smelled like cleaner and old air. Perfect. No expectations live in places like that. I turned my phone face up on the nightstand and didn't block anyone. That was the point. Her messages on WhatsApp came in spaced too carefully to look calm. I read them. Let the blue checks do the talking. No replies. Silence has a way of answering questions people are afraid to ask directly. Back at the house, she filled the fridge again. Another Instacart delivery. Dinner for two. She still believed presents could be summoned by routine. That if she kept the structure intact, I'd fall back into place. I slept through the night. Deep. Uninterrupted. No half-awake waiting for footsteps or a phone vibrating on the other side of the bed. When I woke up, there was no knot in my stomach. Just clarity. She texted again near noon. Then again after sunset. Each message shorter than the last. Less confident. She wasn't asking where I was anymore. She was testing whether I still was. I didn't disappear. I just removed myself from the schedule she thought she controlled. And that's when the balance shifted. By the end of the week, she stopped pretending everything was normal and started acting like something was wrong with the signal. She reset the router, restarted the modem, asked if AT&T had sent me anything strange. She was troubleshooting the marriage like it was a dropped connection. I stayed unavailable without vanishing. That mattered. I answered work calls. I showed up to sites. I even stopped at the same Waffle House after night shifts, sitting in the same booth, watching the same waitress refill my coffee without asking questions. Stability has a sound. So does freedom. Jason's name came up again, indirectly. A mutual acquaintance mentioned a project running late. Team bonding. Out-of-town meetings. The kind of phrases that sound harmless when repeated enough. I didn't react. I logged the timing instead. Same nights my phone lit up more. Same gaps between her messages. Her texts on WhatsApp shifted again. Not worried. Not angry. Strategic. She asked practical things. Bills. Schedules. Whether I'd be home this week. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. This week. She was thinking in blocks now. Planning around absence. At home, I stopped by once when she wasn't there. Grabbed a few more things. Left everything else exactly where it was. No empty drawers. No dramatic gestures. Just enough to function elsewhere. That's when I realized she wasn't losing me emotionally. She was losing leverage. Distance had always been her tool. Silence, deferral, postponement. I'd just taken it away and used it better. She thought she was withholding. I was reallocating. And somewhere between those two actions, the power changed hands. The shift didn't happen at home. It happened outside, where control leaks faster. Her sister called me first. Casual tone. Too casual. Asked if everything was okay because my wife seemed off lately. That's how it spreads, not as accusations, but as concern. By the end of the day, 2 more people had checked in. Not to help, to confirm. At work, she lost rhythm. Missed a deadline. Sent a follow-up twice. People notice when someone who lives in calendars starts dropping time. Her phone stayed in her hand longer. She refreshed WhatsApp like it owed her an answer. It didn't. I stayed quiet and visible at the same time. I showed up to jobs early. Stayed late. Let my boss see consistency. Let others see contrast. Stability on one side. Fracture on the other. That weekend, she hosted dinner anyway. Posted photos. Smiled wide. Tagged people. The table was full, but the chair across from her stayed empty. Someone asked where I was. She laughed it off. The laugh didn't land. Silence stretched. No one pushed. They didn't have to. Later that night, she messaged me again. Longer this time. More personal. I read it. Didn't respond. Let the read receipt sit like a fingerprint she couldn't wipe off. This wasn't humiliation. No one called her out. No names were said. It was worse. People stopped assuming I'd be there. And when that assumption breaks, it doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. That's when she realized the distance wasn't temporary. It was being witnessed. By the second week, the house stopped feeling like a center point and started feeling like a stage she was performing on alone. She kept the lights on later. Moved things around. Changed candles. Small signals meant to reset a mood that no longer included me. She tried anchoring herself through logistics. Sent screenshots of schedules. Asked about upcoming bills. Mentioned an AT&T notice she didn't fully understand, like that might reopen a channel. I acknowledged nothing. Availability isn't the same as presence, and I wasn't offering either. I stayed at the same place, kept the same routine. The room didn't change. The silence didn't demand anything. At night, I lay there listening to traffic pass and felt something unfamiliar settle in. Relief. Not happiness. Just the absence of tension. That's when you know how heavy something was, when it's finally gone. Her messages on WhatsApp kept coming, but the timing was off now. Too frequent. Too reactive. She wasn't pacing herself anymore. She was waiting, watching the online indicator like it was a heartbeat monitor. She stopped mentioning work. Stopped mentioning friends. The world narrowed. When distance stops being a tool, it becomes a mirror. And mirrors aren't kind when you're alone with them too long. I ran into her once by accident. Quick. Public. She looked at me like I'd changed languages. Like the version of me she knew had been replaced with someone quieter and harder to read. I nodded. Kept moving. That moment stayed with her. I could tell by the next message. Short, unsettled, unfinished. She wasn't losing a husband. She was losing the role she'd assigned me. And there was no appeal process for that. She asked to talk like it was a negotiation, not a confession. The message came measured, careful, sent through WhatsApp as if tone could be controlled by punctuation. I agreed without enthusiasm. Public place. Daytime. Neutral ground. I wasn't avoiding her. I just wasn't leaning in. She arrived early. I arrived on time. That difference mattered. She spoke first. About stress. About feeling disconnected. About how work had been overwhelming and how she hadn't realized how far things had drifted. She never said his name. She didn't have to. People only avoid specifics when they're afraid of what precision might unlock. I listened. Not because I was hopeful, but because listening costs nothing when you're already gone. She watched my face the whole time, waiting for a reaction she could work with. I gave her none. When she asked where I'd been sleeping, her voice dropped. That was the real question. Not about location, but about access. About whether I was still reachable. I told her I was fine. That I had space. That I wasn't angry. That last part unsettled her more than anything else. She reached for reassurance and found air. No accusations to defend against. No guilt to manage. Just distance that didn't ask permission. Outside, she lingered. I didn't. Later that night, she sent another message. Longer. Softer. I read it from the same quiet room I'd been sleeping in, the one that expected nothing from me. I didn't answer. I wasn't punishing her. I was already elsewhere. And she could feel it. Things collapsed quietly, the way structures do when the load shifts too fast. Her work trip came and went. I knew because the house stayed dark on the camera notifications she forgot I still received. When she came back, something in her messaging changed again. Less confidence. Less performance. Whatever fantasy had been sustaining her didn't survive daylight. People stopped checking in on me and started circling her instead. Not with questions. Those had already been answered, but with distance. Invitations slowed. Replies took longer. The version of her that had everything handled no longer felt solid. She tried to reset us with routine. Asked if I wanted groceries. Mentioned another Instacart order she could cancel if I wasn't coming by. The assumption was still there, just thinner now. I didn't respond. That night, she sent a message that wasn't careful anymore. No strategy. No framing. Just fatigue and something close to fear. I read it. Let WhatsApp mark it as seen. Put the phone down. I stayed where I'd been staying, listening to the low hum of traffic, feeling grounded in a way I hadn't in years. My days had weight again. My nights had edges. Nothing bled into anything else. Her world was shrinking. Mine wasn't expanding, it was stabilizing. She wasn't losing me because of what she'd done with someone else. She was losing me because she'd trained herself to live without my presence and assumed I'd stay nearby anyway. By the time she understood the difference, there was nothing left to negotiate. Absence had finished the work emotions never could, and I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. The last message came late, past the hour when explanations feel honest. It wasn't long. It wasn't dramatic. She asked if I was coming home. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Just home. Like the words still meant the same thing to both of us. I read it and set the phone down. Let WhatsApp do its quiet confirmation. Somewhere across town, she would see that small detail and sit with it longer than any argument we'd ever had. I went back to the house one final time when I knew she wouldn't be there. Morning light. Still air. I moved through the rooms without hesitation, taking only what belonged to my life now. Tools. Clothes. A few personal things she'd never noticed anyway. I left the rest untouched. Memory doesn't need props. An email from AT&T hit my inbox as I locked the door. Account changes processed. One less shared line. Clean. Administrative. The kind of ending that doesn't echo but still holds. I didn't leave a note. Notes invite replies. I wasn't interested in dialogue anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was precise. She used to say, not tonight, like time was infinite and I was guaranteed. She built a system where distance meant control and silence meant safety. I didn't disappear. I just stopped returning to a place where I was postponed. And when she finally understood that, there was nothing left to ask. Only the quiet she'd relied on, now turned against her. That was the end. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.